Welcome to this week's episode of the Savvy Flipper Show. I am your host and business strategist, Clara Rose, and this is Larry Vanderhoof, our resident expert and construction manager. So, you know, and we know that the Savvy Flipper is all about flipping by the numbers. You have to do a good do-it-yourself self-inspection. You have to accurately estimate renovations, right? And effectively project manage on all of your projects.
Absolutely.
So we keep talking about that each week, but this week we're just going to focus on one of those things, and that is the DIY roof inspection.
Probably the most costly expense you'll run into when it comes to renovating a home.
Yes, not a cheap thing. So we're going to go through one by one, and Larry's going to talk us through the different kinds, the different materials that you're going to come across in the world out there, and then what potential issues you should be looking for, warning signs, if you will, on each of those things. So we're just going to jump right in and start with the first exciting roofing material, right? Okay, wood shingles. Talk to us about wood shingles.
Well, the most common, obviously, is a cedar wood shingle. And the reason that these are popular in the wetter parts of the country, the Pacific Northwest and most of your log cabins and things like that, is simply because they wear so well in the wet, you know, the
mildewy places?
Yeah, places that are going to grow moss and that kind of thing. They do very well. The things you want to look for if you're looking at a house that has a cedar shingle is split shingles. Any of them that have maybe dried out over a hot summer or something, sometimes they'll split, which will allow water to penetrate into some of the crevices and that kind of thing. So that's probably the most common. Missing shingles, obviously, are going to be another issue. Another issue is, as we mentioned before, moss. Moss has a tendency to like to grow on the cedar shingles. The upside is cedar shingles are pretty easy to clean. You can pressure wash them as long as the individual uses a lower pressure. If there's moss and things like that, they can be broomed off and that kind of thing. And older shingles that have grayed over time, they can be kind of brought back to life, made look new again, if you will. With just a little bit of cleaning, and they can actually go up and they can apply a sealer on them that will bring back a lot of that new color.
So instead of being all gray looking, then they come back to the natural wood color. And they could be cedar or redwood or cypress or any number, but cedar is probably the most common.
Yeah, far and away the most common, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of longevity out of a roof.
Yeah, typically, you know, a cedar roof can usually last 30, 40 years pretty easily.
Wow.
Yeah. If it's maintained and taken care of and whatnot. Again, you know, you get it mostly in the wetter climates of the countries and things.
Okay, so watch for missing pieces and cracks.
Yep, missing pieces,
and
cracks, and just, deterioration, you know, because it's wood.
Right.
So there's going to be a certain amount of deterioration. So you just keep a look for that.
Sounds like an easy one. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Architectural shingles. That's hard to say even. Those are the composition roofing, the architectural ones.
Right. Most people will know it as a composition roof. The only difference between it and a 3-tab is the design, and it's a little thicker product, a little nicer product. Typically lasts a little longer than the average 3-tab roof. Again, the things that you're going to be looking for are maybe pieces that have been broke off, maybe a limb hit the tree and broke off a piece. The other thing that you want to look for, and this goes back to the cedar shingles as well, is that make sure that if you're looking at it, it's not an overlay. Sometimes roofing companies will come in and they won't even remove the old roofing material. They'll just go right over the top of it. So if you're looking at a roof and you're a little suspicious as to whether it's going to have to be replaced, you're going to want to make sure that it hasn't been an overlay, because that's just going to add to the cost of the tear off to put on a new roof. But other than that, our architectural roofs typically get anywhere from 30 to 40 year useful life out of them. And unless we've had some really severe weather, hail, storms, that type of thing, it's just a matter of the granulation on the surface. Has it been deteriorated over time? How old is the roof? And that type of thing is what you're going to really want to look for.
So we should be able to see if there's like that streaking where the granules have come off some. Then we know, or curled edges, right? Then we know that you're
Right,
ending the useful
right.
life.
Well, with
of the product.
architectural, you're not going to be. It's very unlikely that you're going to see much curling of the corners, just because it is a thicker material and it lays down longer. You will lose some granules and things like that, and you're correct in that. If you're standing back looking up at the roof and it looks like there's streaks running down it, then what you want to do is you want to find out how old the roof is. Eventually, you'll probably have the roof inspected by an inspector if you end up buying the property, and he can tell you a little more. But it's good to know the age of it and to be able to decipher the condition yourself before moving forward with the sale or with the purchase, I should say.
With the offer, really.
Right,
Yeah.
because last thing you want to do is just take a quick glance at the roof and say, yeah, it looks good, and then make the people an offer and then find out a roofing contractor comes in and tells you, or an inspector tells you, no, that's got to come off of there because this, that, or the other. That's a pretty hefty chunk of change that you're losing
Out
at
of
the
your
table. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so is there any way that they can tell, you mentioned, to make sure that it's not a layover? That's what you called it?
Right,
Where it's layover.
right.
Is there any way for them to tell just by looking?
There is. Well, typically not really by looking. The best way to do that is just simply ask the homeowner. If they've lived there for any length of time, they'll know, depending on the age of the roof, whether it's an overlay. If they don't know, it's pretty easy to figure out, but it's going to require you getting on a ladder and getting up there and just grabbing that front lip, and you'll be able
Just
to lift it up
a
and
little bit.
see and tell whether
Okay.
it's an overlay.
So you'll see the old material underneath of
Yeah.
it if it's there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not totally hidden from you.
Right.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one, which just happens to be, you called it the 3-tab. It's just another kind of comp shingle, but it's just not as fancy.
Right. Yeah. It's probably far and away the most common roofing material in the country. So many houses have it. Now, this is where you will see some of those, if it's of any age, once it starts pushing that 20-year envelope, even if it's a 25-year roofing material, once it starts pushing that 20-year, you're liable to start seeing some corners kind of coming up, and that's just caused from heat over the years, just kind of basically cooking the material, and it's starting to curl up. That's when you're going to start losing some granules. The streaks will be more prevalent in this type of a roofing material than the architectural. Other things you're going to be looking for is broken corners, broken pieces that have come off, maybe loose shingles, and you can tell when they're loose because they don't line up with the rest of them.
Yes.
Your roof vent, the roof vent, the ridge vent at the top of the roof. These are all signs, the streaks and things like that it's probably getting up there in age. And again, just ask the current homeowner if they have any idea when this
Sure.
roof was last replaced.
So you're going to ask those questions anyway
Right.
in your
Right.
when you're chatting before you make an offer, but being
Right,
able to
but-
visually see some issues.
Yeah, and most people are pretty honest about it, but you still want to do your own due diligence and take a look at it yourself.
Yep.
That's where those binoculars come in.
That's right. We've talked about that before, being able to see without climbing on a ladder for those of
Right.
us who are non-ladder people, right? If you're a ladder person, just climb your happy little self up there and look,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
use the binoculars personally.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next type. Tile. This is like that cool, fancy, concrete looking, ceramic looking stuff.
Right. And tile can come in several different materials. I mean, it can come in clay, it can come in, aluminum, metal. Actually, sometimes they make the tiles out of metal.
Oh,
But most all of this stuff is pretty straightforward. With the clay type of a roofing material, you're going to be looking for broken pieces, maybe missing pieces. Again, pieces that are maybe out of line. Typically, with this type of roofing material, they're not going to do an overlay, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And this is a material that they can get up if they're careful when they're on the roof. They can actually get up and pressure wash these and clean them. You want to make sure that if they're pressure washing, they pressure wash from top down, not up from the bottom up. That's just going to blow water up underneath there, and you're going to have bigger issues than your roof. But yeah, they can be pressure washed and cleaned up and made to look almost brand new again. Where getting back to kind of the comp roof a little bit is you don't want to pressure wash a comp roof because you're just going to blow all the granules off of it. But the tile roofs, the clay, the ceramics, those types of things, they're pretty. I mean, they usually have a useful life of 40, 50 years, sometimes longer, 60,
Wow.
70 years. Yeah.
So they'll last for a really long time if they're maintained.
If they're taken care of. Yeah, you should plan on having somebody get up and pressure wash them, clean them off at least every other year or so.
Okay. So if you look up there and there's like some green or some
Sure.
where it looks like
Sure.
some buildup, that not to
Yeah.
worry, doesn't need to be replaced. Just
Yeah,
get up there
just
and
get up there and have somebody
hire somebody to
Yes.
professionally pressure
Yes.
wash that, because
Yes.
that's not a job for
Right.
the average flipper.
Yeah.
Right.
But these are all things that you need to take into consideration, when you're making an offer on the house. What's the roof look like? Am I going to have to spend, $300 or $400 to have it pressure washed and cleaned, or am I going to have to spend $30,000 or $40,000 to have it replaced? So,
Yeah. Pretty important to know that before
Right.
you
Right.
hop into
Right.
making an offer there. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about metal roofing. So I've heard that it comes in lots of different, I see metal and I just think metal, but it could be steel or aluminum or copper or zinc, or it can be all sorts of different things. But talk to us about metal roofing in general.
Yeah, metal roofing, again, are probably the most common in areas that get a lot of snow. Snow slides right off of that metal roof pretty easily. There's not a ton that can go wrong with the metal roof. Probably the most common thing that I've seen in the past are if they've had a storm and it's blown branches out of trees and maybe the branches poked a hole in it, that type of stuff. They can be easily repaired. It's a little unsightly once the repair is done, but they can be repaired, or that particular panel can be removed and replaced without having to do the entire roof.
Oh, nice.
So that
So
makes it
as long as you can
a
find
nice
the right
option.
the right panel, the right.
Yeah.
Are they
but
pretty standard?
Yeah, most of this
Okay.
stuff is manufactured. If you're going to do a house with a metal roof, you can actually pre-order the material in a specific color and a specific size and lengths
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you're pretty safe as far as matching an existing material. But with the metal roofs, there's not a lot that can go wrong as long as they were installed properly to start with. Again, ask the homeowner if they've ever had any issues with water seepage or leaking and that kind of thing. The fasteners that they use have a rubber gasket on them or a rubber washer, so
Okay.
that when they pound it down, it seals the hole around the ridge. So just make sure that they haven't had any water damage. But beyond that, it's just, again, a matter of just cleaning it if it gets a little mucky and a little green or any
So
of that
those
kind
could
of
easily
things.
be pressure washed
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they're looking a little
yeah.
slimy or a little.
Yeah,
little nasty.
exactly.
Okay. All right, that seems easy.
Okay.
Seems like a good one. Okay, and then this one really is only about the flat roof or the barely sloped roof, and that's the torch down.
Right. And torch downs, again, like a lot of this material, is really prominent in specific areas, specific parts of the country. You don't see a lot of residential flat roof structures. This type of material you're going to find more on like an exterior outdoor patio that's maybe on a second level or something like that.
Or commercial property, maybe.
Or commercial property,
Okay.
correct. There are tons of it on commercial properties, but we're talking about residential. And so with a torch down flat roof, it can be a mop down, it can be a torch down, any of those types of things. You just, again, it's one of those things you want to examine and inspect and make sure that the seams are still tight and flat to the roof. There's no bubbling in there. There's no edges that are raised up that's maybe possibly allowing water to seep in. Another thing you want to make sure is that there's no low spots where water just sits there, because regardless of what type of material you have, if water has an opportunity to sit and pool in an area, it will eventually figure out how to get in there.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Water will find a way for sure.
Yeah. And torch downs are actually fairly easy to repair. It's just a matter of you can go down to your local hardware store and get a roofing material. I won't tell you what we used to call it, but it's a really gooey, black, sticky roofing material that you can just smear on there, or sometimes you can use it with a caulking gun and just squeeze it on there.
And that just seals up anything that's...
It'll seal it up, yeah.
Okay.
Typically, you don't see a whole lot of torch down roofs being tore off. Usually they just go right over the top of them with a new torch down.
And it's pretty thin, right? It's a pretty thin sheet of something.
Yeah, some of it can get, some of it can be as much as 1/8 of an inch thick, which is actually pretty thick for a membrane.
It looks really thin to me.
Yeah. Well, it's not.
It's not, okay. And then they call it a torch down because...
Well, we use dragons to put it down.
We use dragons to put it down. Not we Clara, we Larry, or we contractor.
Yeah. So basically it's one of a couple of different systems. It's just, and I don't know that you really need to know this, but it's a big torch that has this big flame that comes out the end of it. And you literally, as you roll it toward you, you're melting the bottom half of that roll, and it's adhering to the surface that you're putting it down on top of. And so it literally melts to the roof itself. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Sounds durable to me.
Yeah. In commercial properties, we use a 4-prong dragon, which hooks into the side of the roll and literally has four blowers on it. So when you're dragging it toward you, all that is melting. You can just walk forever until you run out of roll. But yeah, so
okay.
That's kind of the gist of it. So, most residential homes, I would say 99.9% of the houses that you'll ever look at, you'll never see this type of a roof on it.
If it's a flat roof, for some reason, there are some places in the country that have a flat roof. You may have that on there. So then we're just looking for seams that are bad, bubbles, low spots.
Puddling water,
Okay.
Yep. You want to make sure, and another point is most all of these torch down roofs have a built-in drain system in there somewhere. Sometimes it's up against a pony wall, but most of the time it's usually toward the center, so that all the water flows to the center. That goes down that drain and out and
goes away, because rain happens.
Rain happens.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so and making sure around that drain is sealed up and...
Right.
Okay.
So let's just kind of review a little bit, see if I forgot anything that somebody might need to know.
So I think that you probably have a inspection pro tip for them, right?
Do I?
You do have an inspection pro tip for them. So checking the south side.
Yeah,
right? You're always telling that to me.
Yeah, well, and that's where that's the most climate or sun and wind and rain and everything like that typically is going to pound the south side of the house more than any other area on the house. And typically it's not a big deal unless you've got a composition type of a roof, the 3-tab or the architectural, because those have a tendency of losing granules, especially with some hard, severe weather. The rest of this stuff, you're pretty safe with it. But again, all of these roofing materials that we've talked about today can be pressure washed and cleaned off, with the exclusion of the comp and the architectural type roof. You don't want to be pressure washing those. Or you'll be replacing them a lot sooner than you want to.
Washing off the granules that help protect it, protect the paper underneath it. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think this is really great information for a do-it-yourself roof inspection prior to making your offer. So when you're ready to do your do-it-yourself inspection, you're going to sit down and make an offer. This is a really important piece of information to have before you make an offer.
Sure.
On house.
Sure. And knowing the age of the roof is going to be vital to the offer that you make, because if it's a 20-year-old roof, you're probably going to end up replacing it or needing to replace it. If it's, a 10-year-old roof or a 5-year-old roof, you should be good, regardless of what type of material we've talked about. You should be good for another 10, 15 years.
Okay. So have a look anyway, right?
Sure.
Just to be sure, because you just don't know. And maybe the people haven't owned the house for very long, so they may be unaware of problems that there are, but you can visually see them if you go have a look.
The other thing that I might mention, though, on any of these are any protrusions through the roof. So we're talking about venting or the pipe up through from the bathroom or any of that type of stuff. You want to make sure that the flashing around there is well sealed, and because sometimes that stuff will get hard and crystallize over time and start breaking away and whatnot. You want to make sure that that's all well sealed around there.
So just grab your binoculars and have a look.
Yeah, and the only way that you're really going to know that is if you have somebody actually crawl up there,
And
maybe
have
a
a look.
roofing contractor. So
Okay. Or if you decide we haven't talked about the attic space, but if you decide to poke your head up in the attic space and have a look around, you might see if there's been leaks from one of those. Okay. Okay, I think that's great stuff. That's enough for most flippers to get some good information before making an offer, and that's what we're all about. Getting good information so that you can keep more money in your pocket. Flipping by the numbers, that's what we're talking about. Okay, let's move on to our tool of the week. Yay! I love tool of the week. So this week's tool of the week I'm actually getting to do, and it is a clipboard. If you know me at all or you've watched your show, you know that I'm kind of an office supply nerd. I love things like that. Not sure why that is, but I do. Having a good clipboard to have in the field with you is so important. Clipboard and pen. If you're going to try and run around and do your inspection with just a piece of paper and your pen, I'm telling you, you're going to run into problems. You're going to run into scribbles, and if you already have scribbly handwriting like mine, you really need a clipboard. So my suggestion is always to get a clipboard that is a case as well. So all of the forms that you're going to need for doing your estimating, your self-inspection, making your offer, all those things can live right there in your clipboard.
Right.
You never have to worry about running off without all of the forms that you need. Then, of course, that gives you a nice solid surface to write on. And I love the ones that come with the little calculator right on top. Now, is that necessary? No, because you could pull out your phone, right? No. There's a calculator on your phone, but I like having it just right there, super convenient as I'm trying to crunch numbers. I can't do numbers in my head. Larry does numbers in his head. I am not that person. I know my limitations, so know your limitations too. All right, so calculator is super important, but that clipboard and a pen, right? The little clipboards that hold something, guess what? You get to throw pens in there as well.
Yep.
The important stuff that you need.
Your best friend will be the notes that you make while you're looking at the property.
That's right. When you're doing your self-inspection, you're doing your DIY inspection, you're going to have your checklist. If you're a part of the Savvy Flipper or the Flipping by the Numbers course, you're going to get those because we're going to give those to you. And you're going to do your math right there. Use your clipboard for that. Okay. Yep. And then, of course, I can't let you go without talking about being business savvy, because we are indeed in a business. Even if you are a part-timer, not a full-timer, even if you're a hobbyist, you still need to be business savvy to protect your assets. Super important.
Your assets.
Protect your assets. And I'm going to talk just briefly before we're done today about covering your assets with insurance, the importance of insurance. Every business needs general liability, bare minimum, right? Bare minimum, you have to at least have a general liability insurance for your business. That's just good business sense. On top of that, anytime you buy a property, you better get it insured, right? The second that you become the owner of that property, you need to call your agent and get some insurance on it right now.
Yeah.
If you're working with an agent on a regular basis, then you'll know, okay, this is what they're going to need from me. This is the time frame that I need to get it to them. But you should be able to work with an investor-friendly insurance agent who you can just call. Hey, got another one.
Yep.
Here's the address. Add it to my stuff.
Yep.
Really important. If you do not get insurance, and the day after you buy this property and it's in your name and something happens.
Like a tree falls in the roof we were talking about.
A tree falls in the roof, or there's a fire, or there's,
anything like that.
Anything that happens where you're liable. This is how we cover ourselves is by having insurance.
It can be as simple as somebody walking on the property and getting hurt.
Yep.
You've owned it for 24 hours and somebody trips and falls and breaks a leg.
Yep, because you haven't had a chance yet to, fix the slab that's cracked and displaced, or...
Don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, that will never happen to me, because it happens every day.
It does happen every day. Yeah. So you'll definitely want to protect yourself as much as possible. And then, of course, if you're going to hire your own workers, you want to look at things like workers' compensation. You want to look at errors and admissions, maybe. If you're writing up your own contracts, which we do not recommend, E&O insurance covers you for accidentally leaving important stuff out. But bottom line, find yourself a good insurance agent who will work with you and ask a lot of questions. Make sure you are covered top to bottom.
Yep.
Ask the questions. Don't get stuck with an insurance agent saying, oh, I'm sorry, you're not covered for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it happens. Okay, we're out of time today, but we want to remind you, of course, if you're interested in learning about flipping by the numbers, the 3 basics of being a savvy, successful real estate flipper, hop on over to beflippingsavvy.com. You can sign up for our next upcoming masterclass, and we'll teach you all about it. And until then, we just want to remind you that if you are not flipping by the numbers, you're leaving money on the table. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Take care.